So, the Caterpillar v Gladius dogfight video got a very interesting comment. If the situation were reversed, how would you go about it? I guess, like, if you were in the Gladius, how would you take on the Caterpillar? Short answer, I wouldn't. Long answer, how would I would, but I would require certain things. If I were to set this up, how would I set this up in order to succeed as a pirate? And remember that, piracy in Star Citizen right now is a joke, because there's just so many facilities that we need, so many little add-ons that are just tweaks that we need to really be successful as pirates, which is why you more or less get marauding right now in the Star Citizen universe, because there's just nothing else to do. Or like, piracy just simply doesn't really work in Star Citizen right now. But with the upcoming change of adding a tractor beam hand tool, it begins to work. That is kind of one of the big linchpins. That's one of the things that we really, really need in order to make this work. So how would I make taking down a Caterpillar work as a pirate in 3.12 and beyond? First of all, the Gladius pilot don't really need you. In fact, you can just go ahead and stay home. What I would need is a Retaliator, a Harbinger, or an Eclipse. Something that has good torpedoes that hit hard, that can either one or two shot a Caterpillar. Preferably, an Eclipse would be best, but any of the three would really be acceptable. Something along those lines. I would need a pilot in a stealth ship, but a stealth ship also, maybe not. A Cutlass with a Dragonfly in it would be best, and that person would have to bring a friend along with them. And then I would need, the bomber, obviously. And then I would need a Caterpillar with a few crew members with tractor beam hand tools, who are going to be kind of like the lucky winners of this situation, who just happen to stumble upon all this cargo laying amidst the charred remains of another Caterpillar near a landing pad at an armistice, quote unquote, armistice zone. What I would do is I would send the Cutlass out first. And the Cutlass would drop off a player right next to, we're going to use Bezdek and Ariel as the example, right next to the comm array on Ariel. And that person would have a hacking chip on them, and they would go into the satellite and they would simply chill. They would kind of chill out at the satellite. Then that player, and we'll say Cutlass, definitely, that player with the Cutlass would go and land about 20 or 30 kilometers away from Bezdek on the ground. They would hop onto their Dragonfly, and hopefully they would need to have a sniper rifle at this point equipped on their back. And what they would do is they would go once again to Ariel, get somewhere very, very close to it, and then they would post up in a position where they can see the storage bay where you go to purchase your minerals, where they can see the front door of it, and they would just watch that with their scope from a distance, where however far they have to be to actually see the player as they come out of their ship, and then as they come back out towards their ship once they've purchased goods. With that in place, I would then move the Caterpillar very close by, but nowhere where they could be scanned out, where they would be seen. So maybe as much as 30 or 40 kilometers away on the surface of the planet, and I would keep the bomber pretty much in the same position. Stealth bomber would be best because you can get a little bit closer. And they would kind of sit there in stealth mode, and they would wait for a cargo ship to arrive. The moment they start to see a cargo ship kind of coming in and beginning to make its landing, they would signal the guy at the satellite, at the comm array, to shut the satellite down. So that person will have hacked in, and they will just be waiting to shut the array down. As soon as that person kind of gets out of their ship and goes in to purchase the minerals at Bezdek, let's say, as soon as they come back out, the bomber will immediately start making its run. It will go and it will blow that ship out of the sky and send it crashing down to the ground with whatever cargo remains, whatever cargo survives that explosion, splashing down on the ground. Now, depending on where you're buying the cargo and how much that cargo is worth, potentially even if only 10% of that cargo or 20 or 50% of that cargo survive, it's still going to be a heck of a lot of credits. At which point, they've blown up the ship, but the comm array was off, so they didn't get nailed for crime stat. And now they're on Overwatch, and the Caterpillar comes in with the hand tools, starts scooping up all the cargo and just dumping it in the ship. Once the ship is loaded up, you take it wherever you have to take it to sell it because it's illegal goods. That's another thing that we need kind of much more firmly designed in game. Something that lets us go to whatever the appropriate black market location is. We sell the goods, we divvy up the money, we pay out all the players, compensate the hacker for the hacking chip that they spent on doing that, and then everyone else gets their reward. And that's how I would go about it. That's how I would set it up. But once again, I'm setting it up as a team exercise. If I were looking at Star Citizen as if it's a single player game and somehow by some magic or some arcane wizardry that a Gladius should be able to take on a Caterpillar, that's just not going to happen. Gaming is a bit of a tricky thing these days because a lot of MMOs have moved towards this single player, mostly multiplayer, occasionally style of gameplay, where they try to make as much available as possible to the players to make the game attractive that simply doesn't require you to team up with a group in order to defeat generally the hardest or the most rewarding content. Now, it is true that certainly in certain MMOs, and certainly in the MMORPG genre in particular, you can kind of get to a certain gear level, you can kind of get to a certain point often where much of the content which is current, which technically requires or suggests a large group, you can defeat as a single player simply because you've gotten your power level to a certain point. But in general, it requires you to team up with other players to attain that power level where you can actually push a lot of that away and kind of do it as a single player where ordinarily you wouldn't be able to. In general, that's kind of the reward for kind of participating in that content, is that greater level of power. And generally, that's the way it's gated. It's hidden behind the teamwork aspect of the game. Now, it's certainly true that, if you were a World of Warcraft player and you just kind of went out and you did your dailies and you got this, that, and the other thing, you would get to a certain gear level where the dailies would become very simple for you and the rewards would become very easy, and it just really wouldn't require all that much effort with the basic daily level entry gear that you would gain access to. But the truly powerful stuff, the really, really good stuff, would still be gated behind multiplayer play, whether it's PvE or PvP. And some people really don't like that. There are people out there who feel that you should have access to everything, including all power levels, and you should be able to do it on your own and not have to rely on other players. But that is something that is more akin to a largely single player driven experience. Like certainly that would be a Diablo experience, or that would be a, Assassin's Creed experience or something like that. I think Odyssey is the last one. Yeah, because Valhalla isn't quite yet. But that would certainly be where you kind of get that experience. And, these games, certainly if we'll use Odyssey as an example, Odyssey has all the hallmarks of an MMO. And, it has a big wide open world. There are quests, there are things to pursue. Over here, over there, you're traveling, you're trading, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing all this crazy stuff. And it's very much a similar format to the MMO experience. But the problem is that, while players may not entirely differentiate that, it is a very different experience, because if you have an MMO game, you want to drive players to interact with one another for benefit or for hurt, to their detriment. You want to have those points of conflict for players, or those points of benefit. And some people they can't get over that hump. They want to play the MMO game. They want to play Star Citizen, but they want Star Citizen to be there are other people there, and that's fine. But I'm just doing my thing. You can go out and you can play Star Citizen too, but just don't interfere with my Star Citizen. And unfortunately, it's kind of like the flat earthers of gaming. You can explain it to them again and again and again, and they just can't get it. No, this should be just like, Outer Worlds. This should be just like Fallout. This should be just like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I should be able to do whatever I want and do it all by myself. I shouldn't have to deal with the other players out there. And that's more of like, specific to Star Citizen, that would be more of an Elite Dangerous experience, But for some reason, they want, they want that kind of gameplay, but they want it out of the multiplayer game, and it just doesn't work that way. It's not built that way. If I was to try and do piracy solo as a player, if the situation was reversed in that instance, I certainly wouldn't have brought a Gladius, and I certainly wouldn't be going after a Caterpillar. I would never consider a Gladius as a pirate ship. And despite the fact that there is a pirate Gladius, I think that's adorable, but I would not consider that as a pirate ship. An entry-level pirate ship would easily be a Cutlass or a Freelancer at the minimum. And what I would do is I would kind of scope out, and I would look for places where people with generally weaker cargo ships, smaller cargo ships would hang out. And I would build a ship through components, weapons, shielding, everything. I would build a ship that would allow me to kind of cut down that opponent as quickly as possible. And I would try to construct a scenario or an ideal situation that would allow me to profit doing that. And I would figure out, okay, here are my limitations. Here's what I got to work with. Now, what are the ideal scenarios where this could work? Okay, these are the scenarios where this could actually work and work well, so I could actually build a profit, and it wouldn't just be like a 1 or a 2 off where 10 times it fails, twice it works. Something that almost is guaranteed to work. And then I would kind of build my tactics and my ideas as to how I would engage based on constructing that ideal scenario, or getting players to help build that, that perfect scenario for me, or NPC haulers as well. That's kind of how I would go about it. I certainly, would never hope to or conceive of an idea where a single Gladius could take on a Caterpillar. Certainly a Caterpillar that's well armed and well taken care of. Just well armed and, well built. Even if you could take the Caterpillar down, you've got no way to haul away any goods. So what have you done? You've earned crime stat because you're by yourself. You can't shut down the satellite to prevent you from getting crime stat. So now you've earned crime stat. You've potentially lost money from that. You've lost time because of it. You've spent money on ammunition potentially. You've done wear and tear on your ship. You've spent money on fuel, all this stuff, and you can walk away with nothing from that experience because you simply don't have a ship that can haul cargo. You add other players into the mix and you change things up. You change that equation drastically because now you open up doors. Now we can prevent crime stat. Now I can bring a hauler along to haul away the goods. Now I can bring 5 or 6 different Gladiuses to maybe overwhelm the defenses of that Caterpillar, or we can get rid of the Gladiuses altogether, which I highly recommend, and go for something like a Corsair, something that could probably seal the deal on that Caterpillar fairly quickly. Something along those lines, or maybe get up to a bomber. And it depends, and it allows you to vary up your tactics and allows you to magnify your rewards. Going into that situation with just a Gladius, I mean, you just got born to lose, tattooed right across your chest. I mean, or your forehead would be probably more appropriate. You're just, it's not a winning strategy. There's no hope of victory going down that road. So why even bother, you know? Now, on the upswing, on the good side of being that Gladius pilot, let's say you want to be, you know, a criminal in a Gladius and you want to be the ace dogfighter of ace dogfighters. Star Citizen does give you a venue, does give you an area where you can excel that way, because there are PvE missions that are generated all the time. Go take out this cop, go take out that cop, go fight this cop, go fight that cop. And there's a lot of content that is within your reach. Now, there's not a lot of depth added to that content. There's not reps, there's not rewards, there's not maybe special skins for your ship for doing that, or special armors or anything like that that would kind of show off your level of personal achievement in that area. And there is depth within those areas that you can explore as a single player and you can excel at. And that's a hallmark of very good game design. And, you know, certainly when we criticize Star Citizen, we have to be honest. We have to be forthright with that criticism. And when we praise them, we have to be, you know, the same. We have to give them honest praise when they've done something right. And that's a very good design choice that they've made there, is that within that fighter pilot bound, within those boundaries, there's room to add a lot of depth, a lot of reward, and a lot of areas where players can certainly show off their personal achievement in that area. And that's very good. But simply put, like, the Caterpillar is just out of your reach and there's no reason to do it. There's just no point. And when we look into the future with the things that are coming into the game, physicalized inventory, Death of a Spaceman, which we found out about on Monday, and I kind of wanted to do an episode on it, and then I sat down and realized it's like we didn't really learn anything new there. But you know, as these penalties and as these realities kick in to the game, and as you have to start thinking about these things, it just kind of pushes that even more out of reach, and it kind of makes that activity even more pointless and just possibly ruinous to your future as a character within the game. So, I mean, it really comes down to the fact that, you know, some people might fantasize that, oh, well, I'm a fighter pilot, so now everything is within my reach. No. But the things that are within your reach, if the game is very well designed and has a lot of depth to it, and they really do fill that out, there'll be more than enough achievement and more than enough pursuits within that field for you to feel like an accomplished player. But when we start talking about the big ships and multi-crew and stuff like that, I'm sorry, you're just not in their league. It's just, in multiplayer games, that's the way it is.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.